Today we're going to continue with Chapter 3, Lesson 1, dealing with integer exponents. However, our focus for today is using integer exponents while also using order of operations. One thing that we need to keep in mind when we're doing this is we still have to follow our please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, where you follow parentheses first, then exponents, then you check multiplication and division from left to right, and then you check addition and subtraction from left to right. So what we're going to do is we're just going to look at several different examples here and how to go about solving them. So our first one here, we know that anything to the power of 0 is 1. So we're going to look at this piece right here, and we know that that's going to result in an answer of 1 because -7 is being raised to the power of 1. Everything that we did not use will just continue to drop down into our problem until we have simplified this all the way down to one final answer. We also have this 4 plus 2 inside parentheses, so we could go ahead and simplify that and call that 6, and we have -2. So we still have parentheses, we still have exponents, so we need to now simplify our parentheses and exponents right here into a fraction. Because my exponent is negative, this is going to become 1 over 6 squared. We know 6 squared is 36, so that piece of it is going to become 1 over 36. Everything that was not used, that minus sign, the 1, and the 2, just drops down in the same order. So now we can do 2 plus 1, which is 3, and we have 3 minus 1 over 36, and then you can go ahead and subtract, and that's going to result in an answer of 2 and 35/36. So you can see how we funneled our problem down all the way until we had one final answer. We also followed our parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division from left to right, and then addition and subtraction from left to right. This next example, again, we're going to follow that same setup. So as you fill out your notes, that parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, and addition, subtraction is listed at the top of your notes sheet. So our second example here is this one. So we're going to first do 9 to the 0 power, which we know is 1. We're going to also simplify what's inside the parentheses, which is 8. We're going to keep that inside parentheses because it's raised to the power of -2. We have 64. We have the plus out in front. Okay. Now we have to do our exponents. So 8 to the -2nd power right here is going to change that into 1 over 8 squared. And we know 8 squared is 64. So that results in 1 over 64. We still have multiplying by 64, and we still have plus 1 out in front. We have to follow multiplication before we do addition. So from here, we're going to multiply 1/64 times 64, and you can think of this as 64 over 1. You know how to multiply. We can cross simplify. That becomes a 1. That becomes a 1. So now 1 times 1, 1 times 1, we have 1 resulting there, and then we still have that plus 1 out in front. So our final answer here is 2. Again, we funneled it down until we had one final answer. All right, our third example here, let's go ahead and do our parentheses first. So this 2 plus 6 is going to change into an 8. 4 to the 0 power is a 1, and 1 minus 3 is -2. So now what we have here is we have 128 times 8 to the -3rd power plus -2 to the 1st power. Well, anything to the 1st power is still itself. So we don't even need that to the 1st power. We can just call that -2. And we don't need parentheses anymore because it's just a -2. So we have plus -2, which we also know is the same thing as just -2. So now we have parentheses, 8, we're with an exponent, so 8 to the -3rd power results in 1 over 8 to the 3rd power, and 8 to the 3rd power is 512. that is all being multiplied by our 128 out in front, and then at the end we need to subtract 2. So 128 times 1 over 512 is going to actually simplify all the way down to 1/4. So this piece of it right here is the same thing as 1/4 when you multiply and simplify. 1/4 minus 2 is going to result in a negative 1 3/4. Now, I have no problem if you use your calculator for this, but I want to see your work in showing me how your parts of the problem simplify down, and so that you can funnel it down into one answer. All right, our next example here, we have a negative exponent. So anytime we have a negative exponent, that needs to change to a fraction with 1 as the numerator. Our base is going to stay as -3, and then now it's -3 squared. Well, we know that -3 squared is -3 times -3, which is essentially 9. So that piece of it is equal to 1/9. Now, you'll also notice that all of that inside parentheses is being raised to the power of 0. So anything to the power of 0 is 1. So this rectangle here is just simply equal to 1. So we really have 3 plus 1/9 minus 1. Now you have to go left to right when addition and subtraction are present. So we have 3 and 1/9 added together, and then minus 1 gives us an answer of 2 and 1/9. So we have our final answer funneled down. All right, this next one, we're going to start off with our powers here. That's equal to 1. So we have 12 minus 1 plus, we know that 3 to the -3rd power is 1 over 3 to the 3rd power. So 3 times 3 times 3, which is equal to 27. And then plus, we have another negative exponent here, so 1 over 7 squared, which is 7 times 7, so 1 over 49. We can go ahead and we can simplify from left to right. So we have 12 minus 1 here, gives us an answer of 11. And 11 plus 1/27 plus 1 over 49. Now, this one really doesn't have an easy denominator to find. So if you type it in your calculator completely, that's fine. But otherwise, in a situation like this, you would have to find a common denominator and then continue to add. So we would basically be doing 11 and 1/27 plus 1/49. So go ahead and simplify that the rest of the way on your calculator. And then once you have that, then that would be your final answer. Now, one thing I want to talk about too is evaluating an expression. So when you have an expression here with variables, you might have something that looks like this. But then at the end it says, well, x equals 2. So what you're going to do here is every time you see x, you're going to replace it with a 2. So we're going to put a 2 there, and that first x is squared. So that's representing that. Plus x is 2, but this time to the 4th power. And then minus x, well, x is 2, so we're going to put a 2 here, raised to the power of 0. Now we can go ahead and simplify. So 2 squared we know is 4, and then 2 to the 4th power would be the same thing as 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 more is 16, and then anything to the power of 0 is 1. So we have 4 plus 16 gives us 20, and 20 minus 1 gives us the final answer of 19. So when you see problems like this where it says evaluate the expression, just know you're substituting whatever x is or whatever the variable is equal to into the problem to continue to solve. Now, sometimes you'll see problems like this that are in words. This is just saying that 1 milliliter is equal to 10 to the -3rd liter. So if we're simplifying 10 to the -3rd, basically all we're doing here is we're changing it to a fraction because we have a negative exponent, And then we're simplifying, well, what's 10 to the third? Well, 10 to the third means you have a 1 with 3 zeros and a 1. Why is that? Because 10 times 10 is 100, times 10 more is 1,000. So your final answer is 1 over 1,000. And then our last problem here, find the volume of a cube. The volume of a cube is 10 to the 6 cubic feet. So what is 10 to the 6th power? So we're going to do 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We need one more 10 to the 6th. So 10 times 10 right here is 100. Times 10 more is 1,000. Times 10 more is 10,000. Times 10 more is 100,000. Times our last 10, which is going to be 1 million. And you also see here that there are 6 zeros. 6 zeros simplifies and relates to that exponent of 6. So from here, I would like for you to grab your homework worksheet from me, and then this worksheet, as soon as you're finished with that, please let me know so that we can go on to our next lesson. See me if you have any questions. Otherwise, go into working on the homework. Thank ya.